She was born Elizabeth Ann Bloomer on April 8, 1918, in Chicago, Illinois.
She grew up really in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and when she was a young girl, her father died.
The tragic death of her father to carbon monoxide poisoning put pressure on young Betty to provide for her family. She took jobs modeling and teaching dance.
The love of her life was dance, and she told her mother that when she finished school, she was going to go off and be a dancer, and her mother was really not committed to that idea.
In 1942, she married a salesman named William Warren.
They were married for 5 years, and in her autobiography, Mrs. Ford referred to this first marriage as the 5-year misunderstanding.
Just as her divorce was finalized, Betty met a young lawyer named Gerald Ford, who was just beginning his career as a politician.
He was a little apprehensive because if you aspire to a political life, you would not necessarily marry somebody who'd been married before, but he was so drawn to her.
They were married on October 15, 1948, just 2 weeks after Gerald Ford had won his first term in Congress.
When they moved to Washington, she went through what a lot of congressional wives went through and still do, is 4 children in pretty rapid succession.
Throughout her husband's 13 congressional terms, Betty Ford became a popular figure in organizations like the National Federation of Republican Women.
She was very comfortable with people. I don't believe that she ever felt the tension of invasion of her privacy the way that some others have.
On October 12, 1973, Gerald Ford was nominated to the office of Vice President.
Mrs. Ford had many reservations about Gerald Ford becoming vice president. They had thought that when he finished his congressional term, they were going to move back to Michigan.
After the Watergate scandal, President Nixon announced his resignation on August 9, 1974. Vice President Ford was promptly sworn in as the 38th President of the United States.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
There was a lot of distrust of the presidency, and both she and Jerry Ford made the commitment to bring integrity back to government.
I believe that truth is the glue that holds government together.
She had causes she wanted to promote and issues she wanted to talk about. Betty Ford was a breath of fresh air after Pat Nixon.
Just weeks after arriving in the White House, Betty Ford was diagnosed with breast cancer and underwent a mastectomy. She went public with the news in hopes of raising awareness.
In those days, people didn't talk about that, and so when you had breast cancer, it was sort of shameful. She probably saved enormous numbers of lives because she was so open about it.
Betty Ford continued to be an outspoken voice on a variety of hot-button issues, including abortion and drug use. Her work for the women's movement and the ERA prompted Time magazine to name her a Woman of the Year in 1975.
You never got a feeling that she was plotting or scheming. She was just absolutely who she was.
In 1978, just 1 year out of the White House, Betty Ford confronted her addiction to alcohol.
She went off to a rehab program, and when she emerged, she made a commitment to carry the message of sobriety.
She founded the Betty Ford Clinic in 1982.
Just as she did with breast cancer, she took addiction out of the closet and made it okay to talk about.
Today, the Betty Ford Center is the most successful and the most widely known treatment center in the world.
Betty Ford died on July 8, 2011, in Rancho Mirage, California. She was 93 years old.
Mark Twain is now thought of as America's first celebrity because he was so good at capturing the public imagination, and it became important to him to have a public image.